Hello, and the subject today is how to make a good decision without fear of failure or feelings of guilt. And I want to tell you about my 3-step strategy. And that is step 1, clarity, step 2, confidence, and step 3, change. And over the years, I spent my whole life helping people to make decisions as parents, as managers, as leaders, as salespeople, whatever you're doing. Your role is to help people to make decisions. And what you want to do is make a decision that they don't feel guilty about, they don't have any fear of failure, they have absolute confidence in that decision-making process. And over the years, what I found with people is that if I asked questions and reflected their words back to them and they actually heard those words that they were using, they then got clarity of what they were saying and making sure that they said what they meant what they said, but more importantly, they weren't being mean to themselves or others when they said it. So the first thing, if you're going to write down what you want, is write down a statement now. What would you like to have happen? And write down the words you say and just notice the language that you're using. So my 7-step strategy to clarity is C is curiosity, L is the language, A is where the attention is, R is reflection, is what feedback are you getting from it? When you read it, what's the feedback? What do you hear your little voice saying? Does it say, oh, I can't do that, you shouldn't do this? I, intention. Is that thing that you want good for all involved? Is it coming from a place of fear, I just need to get out of here, I need to get away, or is it from a place of love that this is going to make things better, it's going to be, or are you just like a protection mechanism? And the T is trusting yourself and your own process. And the Y is your story. What's the story behind it? Why is this really matters? And the reason why you need that much clarity is that step 2 is confidence. And the first thing that's going to happen once you've made a decision, whether you tell somebody or not, your behaviour will change. Once we decide to do or not to do, if we decide to act or, action or inaction, whether we decide to keep quiet or we decide to talk, whatever our decision is, whether we decide to eat or we don't eat, whatever behaviour we show up with, it is going to have an impact on the people around us. They are going to have an opinion about it. So the minute you've made a decision, the confidence process starts with chatting with purpose. So you'll tell somebody and then you're going to engage with feedback. And depending what happens between the chatting and the engagement with feedback will depend whether or not you stay confident with your original decision model. Now that's a 10-step process and I'm not going to go through that today, but what I will do is over the next few videos, I'm going to take you through my 10 steps to confidence process. And so I'm going to talk you through that over the next few days. That'd be great to share that with you. But ultimately what used to happen is people would chat and they wouldn't be saying, right, this is what I've decided. They would be like dropping a hint about it and then waiting for some feedback to see whether people approved or whether they liked it. And they weren't conscious they were doing it, but they wouldn't quite tell them. They would just sort of drop a hint. They'd be like, that thing, oh, my friend is thinking about doing this. They'd pretend it was somebody else. And then they'd be basically evaluating the feedback and looking at it. Or without even saying anything, they're chatting in their head about their decision and they're already deciding what other people are going to say. So one of the things that's really important about that is that when you make a decision, is it inclusive of all of your needs? Do you understand why you do it? Do you know what you need to work on and live at your best on your own and with other people? Is it inclusive of the needs of the other people? Do you know what their strengths are? Do you know what works for them? Do you know what's going to push their buttons, etc.? Because you can be in two camps when it comes to decision making. 80% of the time, when people have clarity, I've seen them go and take action. Things change. It's all for the better for everybody, and everybody's celebrating the change that happens. But 20% of the time, it didn't work. And what I found is 10% of those people, it was because they made a decision that did have a negative impact on people. They completely ignored the impact. They did it anyway, but then they didn't really feel confident because they were having to filter feedback of disapproval, didn't like it, etc. So they would feel guilty when they were acting out the decision. They would feel they might have made the decision but not really enjoyed it because they've got these people that didn't like it. And then there's the other people, the other 10% were listening to everything everyone said, and actually the original decision didn't even include their own needs and their own needs and wants. So people's decision-making model either didn't include the needs of others or it didn't include their own needs. And so it's really important to make confident decisions that you make sure your decisions include what you want for you, what you want for the other people, and what you want for the relationship. And then step 3 is about change. No matter what decision you're making, but obviously the bigger ones in life, there's a big difference between whether I decide to eat an apple or a banana right now, or whether I decide to eat unhealthily for weeks and weeks and weeks on end. If you are making a decision that's only going to impact you. Well, it's unlikely actually. There's very few decisions that don't really impact other people around us. So you've made a decision and you're confident with it, and you're even confident that it's okay with other people, even though you know it's good for you and everybody and the relationship, and you know it's the right thing. Because you're changing something, people will have what I call the messy, well, it's a book called The Messy Middle. So when we're going through change, it's uncomfortable. Even though we've all agreed this is what we want to do, we've all agreed this is the right thing for us, we all know it's right, we will still be, ugh. So those of you who watched my videos over the weekend, because I've been going through change recently, and I need to make bigger changes in my business, I need to make some bigger changes in the way that we work as a family. I've got quite a lot of change going on, and therefore it's creating loads of discomfort in me. And it's not because the decision is wrong, and it's not because I shouldn't have made the decision. It's not that I don't lack the confidence. It's simply that change is really uncomfortable. And so I've had to learn over the last 10 years, because I'm really sensitive. If something I do has a negative impact on somebody else, my default was to change my original decision. And what I've had to learn to do is, one, be okay with myself being uncomfortable while we go through change and recognize it's part of the process. And second, be okay with the other person being uncomfortable. Be able to hold that space while they're uncomfortable and say to them, I'm still there and I'm here to support you, but that doesn't mean my decision changes. I understand it's uncomfortable for them. I understand it's difficult for them, that I've changed my world and that's now changing their world, and that isn't a change they chose to have, it's a change that's been impacted on them by my behaviour. And sometimes the change that I put out there, maybe it's these videos or things that I'm doing, has a really positive impact on people. But I was talking to a client the other day, and she was saying to me about, she saw this inspirational speaker that was telling about everything, and actually because the person was telling about great stuff, but her life didn't feel like that, she was devastated, she was really upset, and it brought to tears. But it was also a catalyst to say, actually, I want that life. So in that moment, the change is really uncomfortable to receive. It's not nice. And I have over the years come up with a 7-step strategy for me personally, and I'm always happy to share. And over the next few weeks, I'm going to share that on the videos too, is that I know that if I want to get through change and I want other people to get through change, I have to ask questions of myself and them that make us conscious of our thoughts, not just what we're saying, but what we're thinking. Because the reality is that we all have a load of rules that we live by. There's a set of rules that we tell each other, that we verbalise. There's another set of rules that we have, but we don't say them out loud. We just can't either assume other people know it, or we don't discuss it because we don't want to have the conflict or the feedback. And then we have the hidden architecture rules. They're rules that we don't even know we have until they're broken. And I remember a few years ago when I first learned about rules, Mark did something and I was really okay with it. And then he did it again and I was really not okay with it. And so we were chuckling because I was like, well, I've obviously got a rule that once is okay, but twice is out of order. So it pushed a button for me. And the only way I can manage those changes is if I become conscious of the thoughts I'm having, really listen to what I'm saying, and ensure that what I'm saying is what I want and what works for me. And the last bit of the change process, the S in change, is if I'm going through multiple changes at any one time, I always need support. And I used to think that was too needy, that I was being pathetic, and I had a critic that told me all these stories about it. So I changed that story. And what I recognise now is I need the right support for that kind of change that I'm going through. And if I haven't got that support, then it becomes really uncomfortable. It becomes very unsafe. I feel very unstable. And guess what happens? Instead of me going through change and it being a process of growth and gratitude and beauty and love, it becomes this messy, yucky, conflict, contempt, critical place where I'm nothing's right and I'm irritable with everything and everyone. Whereas when I've got support, I can have clarity of what I want, I can have confidence in my decision, I can chat with the purpose of expressing what I want, and I can be conscious of the thoughts that's going on. And ultimately the H on the change process is helpful and honest conversations. I can have the conversations that I need to have with the people that matter, because we've already created the environment where we can be honest with each other. It's not having a go at somebody or criticising them. It's just saying, this is how it is for me, from my map of the world. So just want to know, tell me one thing that you've got from today's video. What one takeaway will you take from it? Is there anything that's landed today that's made sense? And I will come back online over the next couple of weeks. I'm going to actually go through the whole process is I will actually do the clarity process, and then I'll do the confidence process, and then the change process, because although it is 3 steps, the actual individual process to get clarity, for me, there's a number of little steps in between, and I'd love to be able to share those with you, because it literally has transformed my life and my clients. It's such a beautiful place when you can get those negative niggles and you go, oh, what's just changed? You know, what is changing or what needs to change? And you can nurture yourself through those uncomfortable moments of change with clarity and confidence. Lots of love. Have a fantastic day, and I'll speak to you again tomorrow.